Okay, so we are going to talk about solving log equations. There are actually 6 different types of log equations that you end up dealing with when you're solving. We're only going to do like one at a time because to do all 6 would be a lot in one video. Realistically, even though there are 6 different types, they break down into 3 types that deal with regular logs, which was what we were expanding and condensing when you have log and a number and it's related to stuff like this. And we also have natural logs. That's the second set of 3 problems. Natural logs are ln. The reason that it's natural log and it's ln and not nl is it's technically Latin. Natural logs are related to something called e. E is sort of like pi in that it is a crazy irrational number that can never be turned into a fraction that is handy in that it relates with natural logs. So first 3 types are solely going to deal with the regular logs. Second 3 types are going to deal with the natural logs. So we're going to start with regular logs. Okay. So for the first type of problem, at its most basic form, it's when you have a number to the x power equals some other number. So it's like that first example. I'm going to leave a gap here because it makes it easier. So first thing that you always have to do is you have to get the problem into its most basic form. If you look at the other examples, other than that last one, they all have other things going on. So the first thing that you have to do is you have to get it to look like this. We have some number, some power with x's, and it equals some different number, okay? Next, it says you have to take the log with the correct base of both sides. So it's easy to figure out what your base is. Your base is always going to be this number because this is your base. So you're going to do log base 3 of both sides. So technically on the left side, what you're doing is you're expanding, where you're taking the power and pulling it down. And then log base 3 of 3 is technically 1, so this will go away. And you're just left with the power, okay? Things are only going to go away on the left side. On the right side, nothing goes away. You just recopy it. Sometimes people have trouble with these problems because there's not a lot of calculator work that you do for type 1, okay? And then that is what your answer looks like, okay? This is technically a really disgusting looking decimal if you had put it into your calculator, but I don't want you to put it into your calculator. You should be giving me exact answers, okay? So we are going to go down and not across. Okay, so first thing you have to do is you have to get this part by itself. What you cannot do, because it is not math, is multiply these 2 numbers together, okay? Because 5 isn't like a coefficient like 2 is, it's a base, so you can't randomly attach things to it. So you have to get everything away from this term. So the way that you're going to do that is you're going to subtract the 7. 13 minus 7 is going to be 6. Then you would divide by 2. So then you have 5 to the x equals 3. Now the problem is in its most basic form. So when you get it into its most basic form, you need to put the logs into the problem. So you're going to do log base 5, because 5 of both sides. So on this side, again, the log base 5 of 5 is technically 1, so it goes away, and you have x equals log base 5 of 3. And then that would be your answer. So first 2 examples just had x as your exponent. The last 2 examples do not. That is where if you were reading through the steps and it said finish solving for x, but don't actually simplify anything, we're going to talk about what that actually means. Okay, so first thing, same thing. You have to get this which is your number 2 power thing, by itself. So you got to get rid of the -4. So you can't multiply those together because it's still not math. You would divide by -4. So then you've got 2 to the x plus 5 equals -20 divided by -4 is going to be 5. Now that you have the base by itself, you need to put logs into the problem. So again, you need to make sure that your base is 2 because 2, and you do that to both sides. So on this side, this will go away and you're left with just your exponent. This side, you change nothing and you just write it down. Okay? Often people want to cross out all of the logs. That would be silly. You just put them in. You're only ever going to get rid of them on the left side for this type of problem. Okay? So now you need to finish solving for x, but you can't actually simplify anything because what you need to remember is that this is some blindingly awful decimal. Okay? So when you subtract 5, you can't combine it with this 5 and make it log base 2 of 0, which for starters is not a thing that exists. You can't take the log of a negative number or 0. Your calculator would error on you. So you just need to write them next to each other. So since you subtracted the -5, the way that I always write it is I don't like to put this back here. I think it looks weird. I put my numbers like this in front, so I would write it -5 plus log base 2 of 5. Because the two things are technically being added together, you just can't smush them together, okay? Should you decide to put it in the back and write it like this, it's not wrong. I just think it looks weird. So I don't tend to write it like this, okay? So I'm going to write it like this because I feel like it just looks better, okay? So, last one. So we've got 4 to the 2x minus 1 equals 15. Okay, so the nice thing about this one is it's already in the basic form. In that you don't have any numbers here, you're not adding or subtracting anything, you just have number to power equals different number, so you just have to put your log in with the correct base. And again, your base needs to be 4, because 4. So you're going to do log base 4 of both sides. So on this side, the log base 4 of 4 will cross out, and you're left with 2x minus 1. This side, you change nothing, and you just recopy it down. Okay, so now you need to solve for x, because we're looking for x, not 2x minus 1. So you'd add over the 1, and again, you can't combine it with the 15. They just need to stay separate. So then you have 1 plus log base 4 of 15. And then you divide by 2. When you divide by 2, you just want to leave the entire thing over 2, okay? Make sure when you draw your division line, you extend it underneath the whole thing, okay? Watch that you don't make it weird and do this. This means something different, okay? Same thing with the simplifying. If the 1 hadn't been there and if 15 had actually divided by 2, you can't do that because this is its own little unit. You just need to leave them completely separate. So then your answer is just going to be 1 plus log base 4 of 15 all over 2. And then that is what it should look like, okay? So people sometimes have trouble with these because there's not a lot of calculator work because you leave your answers looking relatively ugly. But the nice thing is that once you can get them into the basic form, they pretty much all work out the same way.